Edgar Allan Poe read about all of the emerging views of science, and he wrote about them, many of them in a dispassionate way. And he wrote about photography, which was an emerging science. And when he was writing Eureka, he wrote in detail all of the known theories of science up to the present time. He had an excellent grasp of science. I'll make that statement for sure, more than any living person at that time, I'd say. I didn't really have much interest in Edgar Allan Poe at all as I was growing up. I had my full professional, official career, and I retired around 2009. I had been a teacher and I had been an administrator for the state, hiring people and a lot of administrative stuff. So I was looking for what to do with my life. My daughter was going into senior year in high school, and she connected with an exchange student from Italy. And she said, Murray, now that we're in Richmond, you need to take me. One of the first things I want to see is the Edgar Allan Poe Museum. So I learned a lot from her about Poe and her interest, and it was infectious. So I decided that I wanted to go back in my retirement instead of hunting or fishing or golfing like a lot of guys or gals do. I wanted to go back and get a master's degree in English literature. I finally came to the idea as my thesis that I would write a book about Poe's interest in science and technology of the 19th century. This was the Industrial Revolution. Poe came around the right time to talk about science because things were happening. Inventions of the railroad, the telegraph was bringing communications quicker. Ships could get people across the ocean quickly. The printing press was modernized. Astronomy was making leaps and bounds. So science was exploding with information. The problem was that the scientists who were making discoveries or hypotheses about science were incapable of explaining what was going on in science to the public. What they were writing about was so esoteric that the public couldn't understand it. But with the newspapers and Poe being associated with journalism in the beginning, he was able to write about the developing trends in science in a way that the public could understand. Poe was, as a popularizer, he saw that science gave him a topic to write about. One of his first published poems was called Sonnet to Science. He talks about how science actually offers the opportunity to open people's minds and learn about things in the universe. His view about science, as it was about many things, was that if he could exploit it and write about it, he would. Now, he did see some of the advantages of science, of technology, but he also presented in his stories the downside of science. He cautioned us about where unfettered control about science can lead us down a really dark road. There are a group of thinkers that were promoting rational thinking, like Francis Bacon and Socrates and all that, as the solution to our problems. And then there were the dreamers and the poets like Keats and Byron who were proposing, no, this is not going to help us. We need to get to the artistic, to the essence of things to learn about truth. And so Poe was in the middle of that. And so he said, well, in order to solve the most difficult problems, just the pure scientific method won't get us there. We need to go somewhat to the next step beyond that by our intuition, by what's coming from sources almost outside of ourselves. Not discounting the scientific thinking. He believed in that, but he just thought that was not enough. The Murders in Rue Morgue, that was his first official DuPan detective story. He brings in some of the things about the way the police make errors, which is standard now in any detective story. Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes, Poe's views of science, that police jump to conclusions and they take what's convenient. The murders couldn't be solved by rational thinking. That established the genre, that established ratiocination, that established the standard. Even Sherlock Holmes talks about Poe in his opening story, A Study of Scarlet. People think about Poe and they think about the Raven and they think about the horror, the Gothic stories that he wrote, and very few people connect him with the interest in 19th century emerging science. I think there's a lot more to be learned.